第二位要上台跟大家分享的是 Teacher Ashley。Ashley, are ready? 好，请大家热烈掌声欢迎 Teacher Ashley。
Hi. Okay, so my topic is teaching at 2 schools, and I'm going to act like I was completely brilliant, and that's why I have 2 different but yet the same patterns on my dress to symbolize. I'm going to act like I knew that when I came in. Okay, so I teach at 2 elementary schools in Yin, and those are some of my students. Okay, so really quick, or really slow. The first school I teach at is Jiapu Elementary. Once again, it's a rural countryside school. I pass the farmlands on my way to school. I see the people in their boots and their buckets. My student population is now incorrect. We now have 49 students. We got 2 students last week or something like that. They're actually twins. And then I have 1 co-teacher, and my second school is Linson Elementary, and that is considered my home school. So for me, teaching at 2 schools, I have to have 1 school where all my information is kept, where the money regarding everything also is kept. So that is Linson Elementary. Once again, another rural school, and they have 56 students. And at this particular school, I have 2 co-teachers, 1 full-time, 1 part-time, and Lenny is my 1 full-time part teacher. Up there is Irene, she's my part-time, and then down there is Corrine. Iris has studied in America. She earned her master's in America. Lenny has also spent some time in America as well, so she's, both of them are kind of, I guess you could say they've seen the education system of America work, and they've, spent definitely a lot of time around us foreigners. My scheduling, I think this is where I'm kind of different from some schools, and feel free to correct me for those who are at the bigger schools. I tend to see my students twice a week, the same students. So the same 3rd graders that I see on Tuesday at at Linson are the same 3rd graders that I see on Friday, and so on and so forth. So Monday and Thursdays, I'm at Jiapu, and Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm at Linson. Wednesday, of course, is county or work day, and so the total curriculum classes that we have are 16, and then total extracurricular classes are 4, so 2 of my classes at Jiapu are English Club, and there, a lot of times, that's our actual rehearsal time if we have any competitions coming up. But since we're kind of done with our competitions in regards to English, just last week I was teaching them a type of dance, Chicago style stepping. And so they were listening to R. Kelly and dancing to it. I've also sometimes done arts and crafts, but I always like to go back to songs because I like to teach songs anyway. At Linson, there is another similar English club, but only once a week. And then the other extra class is for the 1st and 2nd graders. And for those of us who actually teach 1st and 2nd grade, most of us will say that it's usually story time or song time for the 1st and 2nd graders. I use Hello Darby at both schools. Thankfully, there are no 2 separate curriculums. I use Hello Darby for both of them. I mean, it's a pretty okay textbook, but I heard some people say it's not so great. But I mean, if I need to add something, I add something. If I need to take away something, well, I really can't take away. I can only just correct or edit. And of course, if I feel like it's too basic, I'll add on to it. So for lesson 3, was it what's he, she doing? Am I correct? Right. Lesson 3, was that lesson 3? What's he, she? Okay, that's what it's called. Okay, what's he, she doing? And of course, to make it a little more challenging, I'll also let them know that you can also say, what are you doing? What are they doing? What are we doing? I kind of try to add in all the pronouns so they realize that this can be applied to all. Oh, and I also use the CDs that are provided with the books. Okay, so the meat of my presentation is actually what are the biggest challenges working at 2 schools. And the first one, actually I have my notes, so excuse me. My first one is scheduling. Both of my schools actually have different scheduling for their midterms and finals. One school has 2 midterms and 1 final. One school has 1 midterm and then the final, and that's it. And of course, they're not on the same dates. So what I have to do is sit down with my different co-teachers and try to figure out, okay, how can I keep everybody kind of on the same schedule? Like that is my goal, to try to keep everybody on the same schedule. Because it's already, if I had 2 classes on 2 different schedules, it would be very difficult. I would get scatterbrained. The quality of whatever we try to do will be affected because I'm trying to keep hold and remember what did we do in each class. So trying to get everybody on one schedule, that is like my first goal. So for this year, before the semester even started, I was asking both schools, when are the midterms, when are the finals, so I can go ahead and look at how many classes do we need to dedicate for each lesson, and what schedule do we need to be on. Of course, I have to factor in competitions. One school might do a competition, another school might not do a competition. So as long as I know about those things in advance, I can plan accordingly. Another thing is like Jiaopu was the traffic safety school that was chosen, so that day was kind of weird because officials came in to look at all the work they've done. And so, you know, I still sometimes get told things last minute, but it's actually not such a big to-do when it happens or whatever. The next biggest challenge is English level. We all have the high able students, we all have the low able students. But one of my schools, on a whole, their English ability tends to be higher. And so I have to sometimes do different activities for one particular school to challenge them more so that they won't get bored. Because if they get bored, they'll get fidgety, they'll get noisy and loud, and you know, that's just a normal thing of being a teacher, I think. But their English ability as a whole, on average, is actually higher. So I have to give them more challenging activities, or a great way that, an easy way that I always challenge them is to get them to speak more, or I speak more to them. And their delay time, both of my co-teachers, they don't automatically provide them that translation. And it was actually a big, big project to do that one, because it is very nerve-wracking. If somebody doesn't understand you, you automatically want to try to fix it. But both of my co-teachers were really good at starting to just let them think about it for a few seconds, and then I might say it again. And then if they still aren't understanding, then the co-teacher will step in. But most of the time, my co-teachers have been so awesome with just giving them a second to think about it and what they're trying to say. My other school, getting them to a better level than what they are now, because the great thing about this particular school is that even though their English level may be a hair lower, they're still very open and willing, and still have a very positive attitude about English, which I just find so exhilarating. Their positive attitude about English language, and that lets me know that before I even got here, the Taiwanese teacher and administration must have had a very positive attitude towards English, so the kids aren't already thinking, oh, I have to learn English, I'm bad at English. They're just like, okay, we're going to say living room, living room, living room, dining room, no, dining room, dining room. So they keep on and they keep on. So that's what I like, that for the most part, even my school that's English ability is a little bit lower, they still have very good attitude towards English, and they still really, really, really want to try. And the last big challenge is communication channel. Who I talk to at one school who has one role is not the same person I talk to at my other school. At one school, I talk to definitely my administrator over academic affairs for anything that I might need. But at one school, I have to kind of talk to the person who feels most confident with English, who is an administrator, and then everything gets done, which can be confusing because you don't know who you need to necessarily talk to, and sometimes if they get busy, they'll forget. So that is one definitely big problem. I don't know who should I go to sometimes about certain things at different schools. And then I didn't know if I'd have time, but I do have time. I had some other things that I had wanted to add to my biggest challenges, but I'm not sure about that too. For also teaching at two different schools, the resources, they are definitely different. Though both are poor schools, it's sometimes easier to get one thing for one school than the other school. Like, that's one thing that I'm always having to fight and deal with, is that the attitude of, oh, our school's okay, but they'll forget about the other school. So trying to get them to remember, like, no, this school would need this too, and then trying to actually get it to that particular place. Since I don't have a car, I have a scooter, so if I'm having an activity that has a big old poster board, I have to find a way to load my jacket onto my scooter and get there. I have to worry about conserving materials. I can't just let the kids at one school use the resources all up because I have to get it to the other school. So I remember we had some fuzzy balls, and I was like, okay, 2 fuzzy balls per student. 2 fuzzy balls. And we had glitter, and I was like, okay, wait, what do you need glitter for? Let me see. Okay, you can use the glitter. So that is also one of the frustrating things, but that also goes back to the communication channel too, because sometimes I can ask for something, or I don't know who to ask for at one school, and so they won't get it. So it all depends on trying to juggle those 2 things. So, yes, Linda.
Do you have designated classrooms for each one of your schools? I mean, if there's like an English classroom designated for you to use, or do you travel from classroom to classroom?
For one school, I have a designated classroom. I partially share it with the art teacher, I think, and the science teacher. So the art teacher is in there once a week, I believe, and then the natural science teacher is in there once a week. But other than that, nobody's really in the classroom except the English classroom. In my other school, we use the music classroom because in the morning the music classes aren't taking place, so we're able to use that classroom piece. But originally, I did have to hop from one classroom to one classroom. I didn't really have a place to put any extra materials, and so one time something went missing, and we were like, oh my gosh, what happened to, somebody actually had bought me some new pastels, and we couldn't find the pastels the next day, so it was actually kind of like, so one of the administrators says, just use my cubby because I hardly don't use it. So anytime I need to put something up and make sure it doesn't go missing, I put it in the, put it in her cubby and make sure anything doesn't happen.
You mentioned your challenges. I was wondering, what do you think is the advantage of teaching at 2 schools among your other?
The best advantage is that I have really small classes. That's like the best, and I believe that many of us are brought up in our teaching to believe that small classrooms are better. I still personally believe that. So you can definitely pay more attention to the students, you can pay more time, it becomes less of crowd control, and so you're actually able to teach the students. You're actually able to get to know the students to a point. You're able to get to know the students. Like at one school, pretty much have kind of abandoned their English names, and I just call them by their Chinese names now. It happens because sometimes they'll pay more attention when you call them by, well, a lot of times they will pay more attention when you call them by their Chinese names. And sometimes I have a problem with calling them by their English names, but that's why it's so much better. It's easier to do games. I remember when I did the game Four Corners for our presentation that we did last semester, and the teacher or the professor had said, oh, you need to consider class size. And I was just like, oh, well, you know, I don't have more than 10 kids at one time in a classroom, so we can play this without blood. And, so it's okay for us. My smallest class is 3 kids. And I just found out that it's been those same 3 kids since first grade. And they have literally matriculated, and it's the same 3. They've known each other their entire lives. That's the only 3 students they've ever, it's just them. And I actually said, what are they gonna do when they go to middle school? Because it's not gonna be just them. I would be scared. So, and my largest class is 11. So that is like the biggest advantage. I wouldn't trade it for being at a larger school. Sometimes I wish for more anonymity, but I like being able to connect more with my students, more with my staff. Because I know the larger schools, sometimes you guys only see them once a week. And that's so difficult. I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that is, and I wouldn't really want to do that at all. So I like being able to see the same students twice a week, or 3 times or 4 times, depending on English club. I like to be able to see them again and again and see their faces. And that's how I get to know their names, because I know that's sometimes a luxury when you have the larger classes and there's so many kids trailing in and out, in and out, and in and out. Any other questions? Thank you.